What's up, guys? Beer here back in the Fantasy Bar. 6 of my favorite plays for a big Tuesday night in the NBA. FanDuel, Draftkings, and Yahoo. We're going to attack the mid-range here, make room for your favorite studs, my favorite value plays, and of course, my favorite play on the slate. Who is it? Belly up to the Fantasy Bar and find out. Welcome in, guys. Beers Daily Fantasy 6-Pack Tuesday edition. Hope everybody had a great weekend, a good Monday night in the association. And I'm back with 6 of my favorite plays. Again, covering FanDuel, DraftKings, and Yahoo. Fresh off the tap for you. Before we get into things, guys, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you get notified when the videos are coming out. Also, if you enjoy the Fantasy Bar, whether you're a long-time bar patron or you're new here for the first time, do me a favor. Click that thumbs up button. Really helps us out over there on YouTube. Next, make sure you go and download the Sharpside app. Get access to the app absolutely free. Lines, totals, player props, everything you need in every major sport for sports betting, for DFS purposes. And we're running a contest. The streak contest rolls on. All you got to do, lock in your favorite bet. You go on a streak, got a chance to win some FanDuel cash once that streak reaches 6. And the higher you go, the more money you win. Absolutely free to enter. Go and download the Sharpside app today. All right, let's get into plays here for Tuesday that I'm looking at. Let's start at the point guard position with Kyle Lowry of the Raptors. We're going to roll with Kyle Lowry here for a lot of reasons. First of all, let's look at recency bias, which we know a lot of people, all they're looking at are those box scores. They're going to pass on Kyle Lowry with some of the recent results here. I think that's a mistake. Toronto really expected to go nuts here in this matchup with Atlanta, who we know does not play much defense at all. The Raptors expected to score over 10 more points than their season average. Trae Young, very good offensively. Some of the numbers defensively look okay. I think he's one of the worst defenders out there at the position. 25th in defensive efficiency against this position are the Atlanta Hawks. So Kyle Lowry, again, we'll get some recency bias here. Good matchup here. Toronto should smash in this spot. And then Kyle Lowry, a big reason why against the Atlanta Hawks. All right, let's go down low. Get you a big man power forward center, Daniel Theis of the Celtics. So Theis been very good to us here in the Fantasy Bar. So let's go right back to the well here. I think the Celtics going to be short-handed once again. No Enes Kanter, Jason Tatum looking doubtful for tonight. So 2 of the main bigs going to be out of that lineup. That's good things for Daniel Theis, who doesn't need a boatload of minutes to get things done. This guy can produce even in low 20s minutes. So let's look at the recent results. Comes in good form, over 30 FanDuel points in 6 of his last 7 games. So if you're looking cash games, you want that 5x return, he's giving you that. You want upside in tournaments, giving you that as well. In Miami, yes, very good defensive team, but not so much against bigs. One of the worst teams in defensive efficiency against centers this season. Daniel Theis still remains good value here, even with these elevated price points. Love the spot tonight against the Miami Heat. All right, back to the mid-range at shooting guard, small forward, Khris Middleton of Milwaukee. So the Bucks projected for almost 130 points in this one. You worry about the blowout. I don't worry about it as much here. If they're going to score 130 points, Khris Middleton going to be a big part of that. So cash games gives you the floor you're looking for. Nice stability there. The numbers been pretty solid. The minutes been solid. Production been very solid. Also gives you that GPP ceiling. It can absolutely get you into the 40s here. And at low 7s on both of the big sites, definitely within the realm of possibilities here for him to do that. And shooting guard, really been a problem for the Washington Wizards. Kind of like the Trae Young example we just talked about. Bradley Beal has to do so much offensively, so he leaves a lot to be desired on the defensive side of the floor. That's good things for Khris Middleton. And even if he's playing small forward, guess what? They're not much better against that position either. Bottom 10 in fantasy points allowed there as well. So no matter what position he's playing here, we know Washington, a team we want to target here. And I'm going to do it here tonight with Khris Middleton at these low 7K price points. All right, another big man for you, power forward center, Julius Randle of the Knicks. Now this one's interesting. You look at the big pricing difference here. FanDuel, great value at 7,400. Then you go over to DraftKings, 8,600 is a big price to pay for Julius Randle. So what I would do, cash games, I think he's a phenomenal option on FanDuel in tournaments as well. The price not high enough. DraftKings, I think he's a great pay up to be contrarian spot. Nobody's going to want to pay $8,600 for Julius Randle. Some great names below him, some cheaper names below him. I think people will gravitate to. So you'll get him lower owned on DraftKings. Sometimes paying up to be contrarian, the way to go. And I think you can do that with Julius Randle. Charlotte, we know, terrible against bigs this season, but let's focus on power forward here for a minute. Bottom 5 in points allowed to power forwards, rebounds allowed, and of course, fantasy points allowed to that position. The floor has been excellent for Julius Randle. 16 straight games of 30 or more fantasy points. Half of those have gone for 40 or more, so the upside is there in GPPs as well. So again, one of the better values on FanDuel. Draftkings, don't let that price scare you off. Probably wouldn't go there in cash games, but in tournaments, I think you'll get them lower owned because of that price point. Either way, great matchup here tonight for Julius Randle against the Charlotte Hornets. All right, let's get some value here at shooting guard, small forward, Tim Hardaway Jr. of the Mavericks. So we know Dallas, the Luka and Porzingis show, absolutely, but Tim Hardaway, a guy that's kind of filling that third guy, the third scorer role for him, and playing a ton of minutes, which is what I like. You know, the returns recently, kind of like we talked about Kyle Lowry, a little lackluster, a little disappointing. Let's not go off of that. Let's look at the minutes. Let's look at the upside possibilities here. And I think 7-8x return on this salary, not out of the question. The Suns have struggled with wings like Hardaway, guys that can put the ball in the hoop. Phoenix has had issues with those kind of guys, and it showed. Last time out in this matchup, Hardaway went for almost 36 DraftKings points against the Phoenix Suns. So under 5K on each site. We know the upside is there, and I think this game stays competitive. And Tim Hardaway, one of those middle range plays I think people will overlook here tonight. I think that's a mistake. Love this spot for Tim Hardaway tonight against the Phoenix Suns. All right, it's time to take a look at my favorite play for Tuesday night. But before we do that, guys, we're going to run it back. That's right. We're going to say thank you once again to all the loyal bar patrons here for watching the video, thumbs upping the video, sharing the video, subscribing to the channel, whatever it is. We appreciate it. I appreciate you guys always checking in here at the Fantasy Bar. So the Beast of the Night contest rolls on. All you got to do, absolutely free to enter, get in the comment section right below the video. And I need your best guess on fantasy points on DraftKings for my Beast of the Night. Closest guess going to win themselves a free 3-day pass of RotoGrinders Premium. Gives you access to every single piece of content that we have. So free to play. Get in the comment section. Who we guessing on? Let's take a look. My favorite play for Tuesday night. You know him as the Beast of the Night. All right, Beast time. We're going to go to the other side of that Dallas-Phoenix game. We're going to go with power forward center DeAndre Ayton, tonight's Beast of the Night. So this Swells game is going to fly under the radar a little bit. We got some much higher totals, some much higher team totals here, but I really love stacking this game. But a big reason why, love DeAndre Ayton in this spot. 6 double-doubles over the last 7 games. We talk about ceiling games. This guy's going over 50 on FanDuel in 3 of the last 6 games. So you start doing the math here. We're talking about an easy 6, 7, 8x return. And Dallas horrible against centers, dead last in defensive efficiency against this position. If you think Willie Cauley-Stein is going to fix this problem, think again. I think they're only going to get worse defending this spot here. And noted, DraftKings added power forward eligibility to DeAndre Ayton. Can allow you to get more centers in your lineup, which I'm always a big fan of. But either way, this matchup against Dallas, too good for me to ignore here. I think Phoenix stays in this game. Reason why DeAndre Ayton has a massive night, making him easily my favorite play on the board and tonight's Beast of the Night. All right, guys, that wraps up for Tuesday night in the Fantasy Bar. As always, any comments, questions, feedback, hit me up in the comment section right below the video. Don't forget your guess for fantasy points on DraftKings as well for DeAndre Ayton for that shot at a free 3-day pass for RotoGrinders Premium. You can also follow me on Twitter at BeerMakersFan. Love talking DFS with you guys over there for RotoGrinders.com. I am Beer saying salut. Best of luck tonight, guys. We'll take tomorrow off. Be back once again on Thursday. Good luck tonight, and we'll see you on Thursday.
Hey, thanks for checking out our videos. If you want more expert advice on DraftKings, FanDuel, or any other daily fantasy sports, make sure you check out the current videos playlist.
Hey everyone, welcome to Grinderslive. I am Stevie TPFL here to talk some NBA hoops. I know you guys are used to me in the mornings, but we're switching it up and get one of these afternoon shows. So get to talk about kind of my final thoughts here after I've done a bunch of research and some premium stuff here at RotoGrinders. So excited to talk about this NBA slate. And I'll be honest, it has changed a lot since I recorded the morning grind today because of the Milwaukee news. So we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But I'm joined by the Arizona quarterback, Kyle Murray, the DFS player. How are you doing, my friend?
Good, man. Yeah, just got back from your home state, Florida, last night. So feeling good, ready to get back in the swing of things and talk. Not a midnight podcast. You were talking live 2 hours before lock. Feeling good about it. Let's do it.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I like my first looks. It really sets me up for the day. So I hope everybody sets everybody up for the day too. So I'm excited to, talk some hoops here. If you are watching over there on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. If you're not watching on YouTube, why not? Go over to RotoGrinders YouTube page. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, join chat. I have chat open right here. It's right there. And we will, interact with chat throughout the show. Have some fun. This is just fun. It's an 8-game slate. It's not any we'll talk about the Bucks. We'll probably start with the Bucks. But this slate is kind of one of those slates where, we have a starting point because of Giannis not playing. So join us in chat and, let's have some fun here on Grinders Live. If you haven't already, make sure you head on over to Draftkings, one of the best showdown players in the DFS in the industry. Big T. I've been talking smack, and you're in the channel. I've been talking a ton of smack to Big T as far as basketball goes. We got the RG basketball game coming up. I've been talking a ton of smack. I've been posting videos, how I'm going to dunk on him. But if you want to make some money, Big T has some action posted for the big game here next week. And this action is starting to fill up really fast. So head on over to Draftkings, Big T 44. Take advantage of this because honestly, the dude is a beast, and I have a hard time not seeing him have a really good Super Bowl slate. So, also as always, we always do the RG badge promo. If you're playing tournaments, take advantage of this RG badge promo. You can win free premium and stuff. So, we want to give shout out to all these guys and gals that have been rocking the RG badge. If you are in the YouTube chat, you can definitely head on over there and look at the link. But JW 1975, Blaze 217, Fight 95, and T Carter 49. Just want to give you guys proper shout outs. Loving this RG badge promo. But all right, Kyle, let's start here with Milwaukee. I already have Court IQ pulled up. If you haven't checked out Court IQ, go to RotoGrinders NBA. It's right there. Let's pull it up here and we'll look at Giannis off the floor. What's standing out to you at first here with Giannis off the floor?
Yeah, so I did a lot of playing around with Core IQ here. You can take Giannis off obviously, but you can also do things like keeping Bledsoe, Middleton. You can pair them up, put them on, and get a little bit different numbers that way. The main thing is right off the bat, you see the huge bumps that Bledsoe and Middleton get. Obviously, the usage is going to go up with a guy like Giannis being off the floor. But those aren't the only two guys that get pretty significant boosts here. There are a handful of guys here. There's Ilyasova, there's DiVincenzo, there's Brook Lopez. So those are the 5 guys that I think are all getting the most significant boosts. And I do think, if you switch around a little bit, you add Bledsoe and Middleton, keep them on the floor. Obviously, the sample size is smaller, but you do see some interesting things here. Middleton's usage rate drops a little bit as well as his per minute production. So I think there'll be obviously a lot of interest in guys like Middleton and Bledsoe and Ilyasova. But let's not forget about the guys like Brook Lopez and Dante DiVincenzo, who I really like a lot tonight as well.
Yeah, obviously, if we go down and we're looking at the differential, we can see that Eric Bledsoe, biggest bump here, 9.6% with Giannis off the floor. Shouldn't really shock anyone. Middleton, 7.4%. But the sneaky one here, is Brook Lopez, 5.7% usage bump. Brook Lopez will get shots up, and it's not like Washington's a great defensive team. If we go over and we look at NBA stats, we can see the pace of both of these teams. Washington's the 4th fastest, Milwaukee's the 1st fastest, and we go over to defensive efficiency. Milwaukee's number 1 in the league, but Washington's 30th in the league. This is the worst defensive team. It's a team that is going to allow plenty of shots, and they're going to allow bad defense. Like, this isn't a secret, Kyle. This isn't a secret. Like, playing Middleton, playing Bledsoe, playing Brook Lopez, Noah Miss Ilyasova, like, it's not a secret here. Like, but I do think that if we're looking at it, I think that, you're playing these guys. You're not, like, in tournaments and cash games, you're playing these guys, especially in cash games. But I don't see these guys busting in enough scenarios that, like, I'm fading them. Maybe underweight a little bit in tournaments if you're playing large field tournaments. I'm a 3-entry max guy. I know you're more of like a FanDuel single entry, type of player as well. Even if I was running 150 lineups on this slate, which I'm not, I'm playing 3-entry max, I wouldn't be underweight on these Milwaukee players.
Yeah, I think that's the way to look at it. We've talked about it over and over again, whether it's on the Morning Grind or Grinderslive. Chalk in NBA is just better. There's less, risk with it. There's a lot of really good chalk in NBA night in and night out. And this is another scenario with it. You can't get any better of a matchup. All these guys are getting pretty significant boosts, whether it's minutes, usage, per minute production. The boosts are there. So, yeah, you're playing them, but there are also ways that you can get pretty contrarians in this game alone too, and that you can play guys on the other side with the Wizards. Taking Giannis off the floor, that's going to bring the defensive efficiency down for the Bucks significantly as well. So might be a little bit better of a matchup for these Wizards as well. And then a guy like Dante DiVincenzo, I keep bringing him up because I like him a lot. FanDuel is 4,500, definitely playable over there on DraftKings as well with that price tag. So I like him a pretty good amount. He could be a sneaky little, not necessarily a pivot, but a way to get, action on this game, on this side of things with being a little bit contrarian and also saving some money. So he's a guy I like a lot as well.
Let's pull up lineup HQ here. I've already locked in Bledsoe and Ilyasova. I think that, like, if you're looking generally at this game, just the Milwaukee side, you can definitely lock in Middleton too, especially in cash games. So if you're locking in those 3 guys, obviously if we're looking here, like, we can see that Brook Lopez expected to exceed value. DiVincenzo expected to exceed value. Like, these guys are expected to exceed value. If you're running 3 Milwaukee players, we had another stack question that we'll get to in a few minutes here as far as stacking is concerned on this slate, because I do think there's an interesting stack to run with this game that kind of works out salary wise. If you're looking at like playing Bledsoe, playing Middleton, playing Ilyasova, I could consider playing even a 4th buck in cash games. They have a 126 implied total, which is, I think, 6 points higher than the second highest total on this slate. So, like, their total is so high. Is there anybody on the Washington side that you feel like you want to run it back with, or that you're going to run it back with?
Yeah, I think Bradley Beal's a guy that you can definitely run it back here with. The price tag has come up a little bit ever since it was way too low, especially on FanDuel. We talked about that price tag on the Morning Grind a handful of times. So Bradley Beal, I think, is someone you can run it back with. And then also Troy Brown is a guy I do have some interest in. No Jordan McRae tonight, so maybe Troy Brown picks up a few extra minutes here. Was already a guy who was, pretty productive, per minute, and not the most usage in the world, but I have him projected for 29 minutes. So I do think he's a guy who can get in there and, maybe be a defensive specialist or whatever they might need. But it's going to be a high total, high paced game for this matchup. So I think Troy Brown, a guy who's definitely cheap enough to be playable here. Potentially get a few more minutes with McRae out. So Brown and Beal are the main ones for me. And then Davis Bertans as well. So he got back, and I believe he played 32 minutes in that last one. The price is definitely appealing on FanDuel, but he's going to be coming off the bench again. So if you can get around 30 minutes, I think that's something that's really interesting. Prefer him on FanDuel where he's a little bit cheaper, but at 5-1 over there, I think he's an okay play. Not necessarily a lock button player or anything like that, but I do think he is someone to at least consider for tournaments.
Yeah, so like, you play a lot more on FanDuel. On DraftKings, I still think Bradley Beal has plenty of upside at 8.3K. I think Troy Brown Jr. is fine. No Jordan McRae. I think Troy Brown, I think his floor is like 25, 26 minutes in this game. I think he probably plays, we have him projected for 28 and Ish Smith for 28. I think Troy Brown ends up more like 31. So I think he ends up playing a little bit more. So if I'm running it back here, if I have some of these Milwaukee guys and I want to run it back, Beal, Bertans, Brown, I think Ish Smith is interesting for tournaments. As you can see, like I have him tagged on DraftKings today for a salary saver because I do think he's an interesting like tournament salary saver type of play. We have him projected around 7%. I think he actually comes in, lower than that as well. So, one thing that we talked about pre-show was kind of just the Boston Celtics. They're another team that's missing a couple guys here tonight. Cantor, he's out. Tatum expected to be out. I know he was doubtful. I don't know if we've officially got the word yet. Let's talk about this team because the matchup is a little bit different here for Boston today. Going into Miami, it is back-to-back for Miami. But we have to, I think, mention Kemba Walker, right? Like that's, 5% usage increase, 33.4% increase or overall. What do you like here for Boston with these guys out?
Yeah, I just think Hayward and Brown specifically are just way too underpriced for the minutes boost that they're going to get as well as the usage. And they're already good permanent guys. So, Kemba definitely gets the biggest boost out of all of them. The sample size is pretty strong, 287 minutes, 33% usage, 1.31 fantasy points per minute with Tatum off the floor. So, all three of those guys are definitely interesting. And today, the way the slate's shaking out, I think Kemba Walker is going to be extremely overlooked. Especially on FanDuel where you really can only play 2 point guards. So, I think he's going to be a guy when people are going to be essentially locking in Bledsoe. Then you got Trae Young and Luka on the slate as well. I think a guy like Kemba could be really contrarian. Yeah, it is a really tough matchup here, but Kemba Walker and these Celtics guys are guys that can, get their efficiency and their production no matter what kind of matchup it is. So Walker, Jaylen Brown, and Hayward would be the ones for me. I would probably prefer Gordon Hayward over Jaylen Brown. They're essentially the same price on FanDuel. So I would prefer Hayward over there, but I like all three of these guys, and I think they're all pretty good plays, even in a tough matchup.
Yeah, and I think you can flip-flop it on DraftKings. I think you can play Brown over Hayward and save the $700 on DraftKings. But like we're projecting like all these Boston players like to be under 10% owned. Outside of Jaylen Brown on DraftKings, he's like 20%, which is probably pretty close. But I think Boston, just a team that could potentially fly under the radar here. Like, we're trying to win a tournament tonight. And Milwaukee in this Washington-Milwaukee game is just going to be so overly popular. And I think that the New Orleans-Cleveland game is going to be really popular as well. But there's another game that we'll talk about here in a minute. And people are talking about Tatum is questionable. Like he's more on the doubtful side. We should be getting a report here, the actual official injury report here within the next few minutes to see if he's going to be doubtful or if he got upgraded to questionable. So we'll kind of have to see as far as that when it comes out. But I think Kemba is really interesting. I think something that people overlook doing too is not using like the date range on Court IQ. And let's look at like the last 4 weeks with Tatum and Cantor off the floor to kind of like narrow it down a little bit. I think smaller sample sizes are fine in basketball, but we could see here that like we're still seeing Kemba high usage, averaging 1.38 fantasy points per minute. Like, is this something that you like to do? I love, using Court IQ, narrowing it down and getting a smaller sample to kind of basketball and coaches change so much throughout the season that I actually like smaller samples.
Yeah, definitely. And especially when you have the past knowledge of maybe another guy being out. So going back to the Bucks as an example, we've seen Bledsoe and Middleton miss extended periods of time. So putting them both on the floor and taking Giannis off is something that I looked into doing. The sample becomes smaller, but you get a more better feel of how these guys are going to perform when they're playing together. Because a lot of times they're going to be on the floor together with each other. And, maybe a sample of just taking Giannis off the floor will give you those X amount of minutes of when they were playing, by themselves without Middleton because he was out or without Bledsoe because he was out. So definitely something you can do, especially when you have that knowledge of, if someone was out for an extended period of time or if things change. So using the date range is definitely helpful for sure.
I'm gonna stick with that theme, and I'm gonna go to one of these guys that I really like for tournaments tonight. If you're playing large field tournaments, if you're playing like 3-entry max, this is a guy that I'm gonna get exposure to. And I've already kind of set it up, but I'm just gonna show that I've selected the last 2 weeks for Trae Young. Trae Young over the last 2 weeks has a 34.3% usage rate, and he's averaging 1.6 fantasy points per minute. We dig into this a little bit more, Kyle, and we can see here that 41.7%, 37.4, 42.2, 35.1. His usage is absolutely insane right now. I don't think he's going to get any ownership on this slate. Like if we're looking at projected ownership, 9.2% on DraftKings, 7% on FanDuel, 5% on Yahoo. I know there's some really solid value out there, and I think there's a lot of people that want to, use some of these guys. But like, let's look at Trae Young here, and yeah, he's expensive, but like the dude has continuously showed us the type of upside that he has.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you look at DraftKings, when he has that added bonus of he hits a lot of threes, turns the ball over a lot, so those points are obviously less. You lose less points on DraftKings. You got all the bonuses for triple double and double double and whatnot. So really, I think he's a really good play on DraftKings. I love him a lot on FanDuel. I'll definitely have a pretty good amount of him in my 3 max. So yeah, I think he's a really strong play. You mentioned it. A lot of value opens up, and people are gonna really want to get Luka in their lineups. And while I think Luka's a great play, I think Trae Young's a great play as well. It is a tough matchup. He's probably going to be matched up with Van Vliet, who is obviously a really good perimeter defender, but it's Trae Young. He can beat any kind of matchup, and this could be a game where I like somebody on the other side who we maybe talk about a little bit. Pascal Siakam, I like him a pretty good amount. So pairing these guys makes a little bit of sense as well, because obviously if Siakam's going to have a stealing game, the game's going to stay close. And with Toronto at home, if they're going to keep this one close, you've got to think Trae Young's going to have a hand in that. So yeah, I like those two together a lot in the same game. And Trae Young makes a lot of sense. Anytime you can get Trae Young at less than 10% ownership, I think that's something you at least have to consider.
Yeah, and if you're playing like the Milwaukee guys, if you want to like play Trae Young and Siakam, like you still have around 5K to fill 3 spots. Like it's a stack that you could put on top of your Milwaukee stack, and you could even use a 4th Milwaukee player as another value guy if you really wanted to here, because when you're looking at tournaments here, you want to be different. Everybody's playing Milwaukee tonight. They're the best place. We're not sitting here saying that Milwaukee's not the best place. I don't think I'm stacking Boston, Miami. I don't think I'm stacking Charlotte, New York. There's another game stack that we'll talk about here in a second. But I think that when you're looking at tournaments here today, being different with a stack on top of your Milwaukee stack is something that could really set you apart. And I think that a Siakam, Trae Young stack where we have these guys projected for 17 and 9% ownership, you could really take advantage of this type of stack to be different in tournaments.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite pairings of the night. And I think especially on a smaller slate where, maybe correlation helps you a little bit more, especially in tournaments. It's not like it's a 12 game or, 10 game massive slate or anything like that. We got a 7 gamer here. So, or 8 gamer. So I think it's a good idea to maybe stack guys even more, especially in spots where there's a few really good games, mainly the Washington-Milwaukee one, but, the 244 total or whatever it is now. But, when games like that, kind of got to get in on those. So, makes a lot of sense to be correlated tonight.
Yeah, somebody in YouTube chat, again, if you're not on YouTube, head on over to chat. We're paying attention to chat. There's a couple questions about stacks we'll talk about here in a few seconds. We had a 3-ball, who's better, Stevie or Bertans? We all know Stevie's better. But somebody in chat is asking us over on YouTube, will it be a blowout? Like, these two teams just played 8 days ago. 117 to 122. That game was in Atlanta. Obviously, that makes a huge difference. Could it be a blowout? Sure. But if we're going to get low ownership on these guys, Milwaukee guys are going to be popular. We have to take chances. And like, if I'm taking a chance on a guy like Trae Young, if Trae Young hits his ceiling, this game stays close because he's the reason why.
Yeah, exactly. And, honestly, even with Trae Young, we've seen him continuously play deep into the games of blowouts. He's, it kind of feels like he's a lock for 35 minutes every single night, whether the game's close or not, really, because they just continuously get him in there late in games, even in games that are out of reach. So I think Trae Young, you have a little bit less of concern. I think the concern more comes with Siakam on the other side. Maybe he loses a few minutes, but his price tag, especially on FanDuel, is just way too cheap to where even if this game does blow out, maybe he only plays 30 minutes, he could still crush his tag. And then maybe if the game stays close, which pairing these two together would make a lot of sense in correlating that, then he's in the mid 30s of minutes, and then he's all of a sudden hitting a ceiling, and there you go. That's how I think about it anyway when I'm building GPP lineups.
I'll be honest, and let's just be honest for a second. I don't think that any of these guys, like, we shouldn't be building lineups for tournaments thinking a blowout. Like, anytime you're building a tournament lineup, do not be, oh, this game could blow out. Like, that's just not how you build tournament lineups.
Yeah, and the only time I really ever do that is if I'm playing a bench guy and say, hey, maybe he gets a few more minutes. But when I'm playing a starter or even a stud with upside, definitely don't want to think about that, because that if they blow out, then that lineup's probably not gonna get there anyway. So you're building lineups for first place. So that's how you got to think of it.
All right, so kind of while we're on the topic of game stacking and ways to be different, I have my court IQ up here. I love this Denver Minnesota game. I don't know if a lot of people will love this game. Looking at projected ownership, nobody is really projected for a ton of ownership here. I love this. I love that this is just a game that's kind of flying under the radar as a 224 total. It's come down a little bit, but like when we're thinking of Memphis, we're thinking of one of the fastest paced teams in the NBA. Jamal Murray out, like Denver's been playing a little bit faster. Do you feel like this game could potentially like be a difference maker, or am I off my rocker here?
No, I definitely like some of these pieces. I think when it comes to game stacking, the pricing of some of these guys makes it a little bit harder to game stack these guys compared to the Washington-Milwaukee game. But obviously that's going to happen when you have Giannis out. But yeah, I think there are definitely some pieces that I like on both sides. Even with Denver being a tough defensive team, I look at a guy like Jaren Jackson. I think he's at a pretty good price, and I think he's got some upside here. We've seen the prices on guys like Jeremy Grant and Michael Porter come up a little bit, so that's a little bit tough. But Will Barton at $6K, I think he's just way too cheap. We saw him lose a few minutes last game, but I don't think that's anything that'll remain consistent. And then Gary Harris came back. The minutes appear to be limited, but he came in last game and got up 13 shots. So those guys are definitely value plays or Gary Harris is a value play that you could potentially have interest in. And Will Barton's one of my favorite small forwards of the day. So I'm excited to hear you hype up Jokic a little bit. I have a feeling you're going to like him, and normally you are anti-Jokic, so I'm excited to hear this one.
Yeah, for sure. I am not a Jokic person. Anybody that listens to the Morning Grind knows that when I talk about Jokic, you fade him, and when I fade him, you play him. Here's the thing. When we're looking at Jokic, 10% Jokic, if we do get news that Embiid's not going to play, like he's still questionable, right? Like I haven't looked at the injury report. We've been going
he's going to be a game time decision, they said.
Yeah, so like if Embiid sits, like Jokic is clearly the best center play on the slate, right? Like it's obviously like anybody can go off on any night. I'm not saying that, but like when we're looking at centers on this slate, like he's obviously, I was just quickly refreshing. Yeah, he's still questionable here. So, for me, like if you're playing Jokic, I like Jokic a lot. So, which is so weird to say, but like one of my favorite value plays on this slate is Kyle Anderson. I don't think a lot of people will play Kyle Anderson today. So like if you're playing Kyle Anderson and you're playing Jokic, you still have 6,200 for 3 spots. So you could technically, if you wanted to, play Morant. If you're playing on FanDuel, I really like Michael Porter Jr. I think he's a little too cheap on FanDuel for his upside. So like if you're playing over there, I think that there's plenty of ways that you can build a game stack. I think this is going to be one of the most competitive games on the entire slate as well. And it's going to be faster paced for Denver. So getting Jokic and getting another piece like a Michael Porter, getting like a Dylan Brooks, I just think these guys are kind of undervalued on this slate. And they're a team that I'm going to be taking a shot on just because like I'm trying to mix my Milwaukee teams up a little bit. And this is a game that really stood out to me that I really like.
Yeah, slow-mo Kyle Anderson is definitely someone that could provide some value. Jay Crowder doubtful. I think that's a pretty good call. And then Michael Porter, you mentioned, I think he's just way too cheap on FanDuel. He's one of the guys that I'm actually making somewhat of a priority here. I think the price is just way too cheap, and that price range at that tag is just someone that I'm trying to target, that range of players in the 5 to 6K range at power forward on FanDuel. So yeah, Porter's someone that I like a lot as well. I do think you're sleeping on one center, and that's DeAndre Ayton. I know you like Jokic.
Oh, I like him a lot too. Okay. I do. Yeah, that was a guy that I really like too.
Yeah, I think he's probably my favorite one. I think I love Jokic a lot on the slate. I just think the fact that you can get, a little bit of a discount for Ayton in this spot against Dallas with, all their big men hurt. We see Dwight Powell go down. We see Porzingis potentially out in this one after being tagged questionable in the middle of the day. So DeAndre Ayton's a guy I like a lot. We've actually seen a little bit of a price decrease, and the minutes have just been unreal for him with guys like Baines and Kaminsky out, and they're still out again tonight. So he should see mid-30s of minutes. Played 39 in the last one. So the upside for those kind of minutes is there. Night in and night out with Ayton right now. As long as these guys are out, they just really need to have him on the floor as much as they can, really. So I like him a whole lot. He's my number one center tonight.
Yeah, I would be honestly. I think Porzingis is very questionable. Midday questionable tags always like alarm me.
Yeah.
We had some people over in YouTube chat asking as far as Embiid. As of the 5:30 injury report, Embiid is still questionable. So we'll just kind of have to pay attention to that. While we're on the topic of the Denver Memphis game, this is my sharp side lock today. Like I was kind of questionable on the morning grind. I have my streak going. I have 2 going here. I've been right a couple times here. Like I got it at 223.5. I love the over even at 224. I love the over in this game. Again, like if you're playing over there, if you haven't checked our sharp side, make sure you do it. The locks contest is a ton of fun. All you got to do is download the Sharp Side app. If you go to a contest, you can kind of read about it. The rules are right there at the top. You can see the contest info. 0 to 5, you're not getting any money. But once you get your streak going, Kyle, like 6 to 10, you make $10 per pick. 11 for 15, you're making 20. You can make up to $100 per pick when you get that streak really rolling at 21 to 30. I want to give a shout out to Tybu87. He has a 12 streak going. That's phenomenal. Hopefully he can keep it going. So I like my 2 streak, and I'm gonna keep it rolling here. And I know we talked about Milwaukee already. You jumped on it early. You jumped on it like right away. Anybody that's using Sharp Side, when you have injury news hit midday, Kyle jumped on it right away. I tailed your pick as soon as you posted the video or posted the picture.
Yeah, I actually had interest in that Bledsoe prop beforehand. I think it was at 15.5 when I got it. And then, obviously Giannis rolled out, so I had to jump all over that. I got the over on the points at 15.5 and over on the assist at 5.5. So I think that was pretty solid. I think it's as close to a lock as I can get. I have him projected for 25 points, so almost a 10-point difference there. So hopefully that works out.
Yeah, you got that. Like I went Brooke Lopez 10.5 over, Middleton 19.5 over. Like
Yeah.
as soon as you like posted that like line for Bledsoe, and like this is just anybody that's using it. Like if you get advantage, like if something like that drops in the middle of the day, like take advantage of it, get that streak rolling. So if you haven't checked out Sharp Side, make sure you do it. It's awesome. It's a ton of fun. And you can win money for free. Like who doesn't like free money, right, Kyle?
Right.
So we've been kind of all over the place. I see a lot of people in YouTube chat kind of asking us about that Cleveland New Orleans game. Let's go over to that game and just kind of give some thoughts here. I think the person we start with is Zion, because I know you play a lot on FanDuel. Like, is he just a guy that is like a lock for you over there on FanDuel, or is maybe 2 out of 3 lineups? Like, what are you doing with Zion?
Yeah, so that like I mentioned, that price range is guys that I'm looking for, and I do think it's a pretty optimistic spot here for Zion. The minutes looked pretty strong in the last game. Will be interesting to see where his final ownership projection falls, because I think if he's a guy that's going to be somewhat chalky, might be a spot where I pivot, just because the minutes limit could still be there. Although he did seem to break through that ceiling of minutes limit last game, but it could still be there. He played 27 last game. Wouldn't be surprised to maybe see it come down around 25 again. So that's just something to monitor. If he's going to be super chalky, you could kind of play that narrative when pivoting. And then if he's going to be under owned, I think he's definitely someone interesting. It's a good matchup. The minutes got up there at 27. So for me, it's kind of just an ownership play for Zion. I don't think he's necessarily someone that I'm, going out of my way to get into lineups right now. I know Meansy likes him a lot, made him a core play, and obviously the great matchup. He's been amazing, really, since he finally returned to the lineup. So no complaints with Zion. But for me, the main target in this game that I have some interest in is Dante Exum, who just a minute ago was announced he's going to be starting for Darius Garland. So he's someone that's going to provide some value. I know he's going to be fairly popular on DraftKings, but on FanDuel, you only get to play 2 point guards. Bledsoe's going to be, filling up half of that. So I think Dante Exum could be pretty contrarian on FanDuel. I don't know how contrarian. I don't want to go out and say he's going to be like 5% or anything, but I would assume he's going to be under 20. I haven't checked the updated ownership projection since going live, but I assume he'd be fairly low owned. So he's someone that I'm really interested in this game.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah, I haven't even thought about Exum, to be honest. Maybe I need to go update a tag for him, knowing that he's going to be starting here. So I think he's actually really interesting. Like, I have interest in Sexton. I don't think he's like a lock and load play, but I think he is a guy that if you're ending up in that range. I think Favors is another guy if you're ending up in that range. The only problem with Derek Favors is like there's a bunch of centers on this slate that I like. So I'm gonna do something here. Hopefully this is okay as far as the producer goes. I did not ask on this, but we have people in chat asking about Marc Gasol, and we have people asking about Brook Lopez. So I'm going to do something that like I typically will do when I'm like comparing two players, and hopefully this is cool. I'm not getting any word that it's not cool. So what I'll do is I'll pull up both of these guys on Lineup HQ. Like if I have two guys that I'm kind of looking at in the same range and just kind of compare them. So I have it pulled up, Kyle. I have Marc Gasol pulled up. I have Brook Lopez pulled up. If you're playing like a Jokic, if you're playing like an Ayton, on DraftKings, you still have your utility spot where you can play one of these guys if you want to. But when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at like we're seeing really good value for both of these guys. Projection is, both over 5X. I think that the biggest thing here is Brook Lopez is projected for 28% ownership and Marc Gasol is projected for 10. And when I'm looking at the ceiling, like it's like 4 points, difference, and like 4 points on an 18% ownership difference. Like I think, a guy like Marc Gasol could be an excellent pivot here.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. The only issue with Gasol, really, I liked Gasol beforehand. Last night when doing, a little bit of a first look type thing for myself as well, I thought Gasol would be someone that could be pretty interesting. So I think it's definitely a good pivot here. You obviously around the same price, and the ownership, obviously getting that kind of discount on ownership is huge. So I think Marc Gasol could be a natural pivot considering that they're so close in price as well.
But know this, and again, I'm not trying to project a blowout. If Toronto gets a lead and they're handling this game, there's a good chance Marc Gasol is one of the good, like one of the first guys off the floor. Like I just want to be known, like not to be known, but whenever I'm like considering like a 1v1, I get 1v1 questions all the time. We get them on Twitter, we get them in chat. This is a way that like I process things. I think like people don't do this enough when you're like doing 1v1s, because if I'm looking at this screen and I have Lineup HQ, I have premium on RotoGrinders, it tells me like everything I need to know is right in front of me. I still think Brook Lopez is a better play. I do. But if I'm looking for a pivot, like Chad is looking for a pivot, actively looking for a pivot, I think Marc Gasol is a really strong pivot.
Yeah, definitely. And I personally, there's two really ways to pivot a guy who's going to be pretty chalk. It's a natural pivot like this. That's what I mean when I say natural pivot. He's in the same price range, same position, or you can kind of flip lineup construction on its head and kind of find different ways to make your line different that way. And these pivots are nice, especially in NBA when you're trying to get, the guys like Bledsoe and like Ilyasova into your lineups. So this is a natural pivot that I like a lot, and you get, over half the or less than half the ownership. So I like Gasol a lot tonight.
All right. So I have the keys to Lineup HQ right in front of me, so we can kind of look at whatever you want. Is there anything that is standing out to you on this slate that we really haven't been talking about?
I mean, as far as the on Lineup HQ, and you quickly look at it, when I'm sorting on FanDuel primarily with everybody, all positions. I think you have DraftKings pulled up, but when I sort,
I'm switching it. I have the keys. Like I haven't got any, like I haven't been yelled at yet in my ear or anything like that. I'm just switching it. If you don't have premium, like I'm giving you a look today. Like you should be taking advantage of this show and liking and subscribing to the RotoGrinders like page here, because I feel like we're giving out a ton here. So if you don't have premium, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, comment below, tell us what you think. All right, I have FanDuel pulled up, Kyle. Tell me what you're looking at here.
Yeah, so when you sort it by point per dollar, you'll see, there's a lot of top plays, and you'll see guys like Dalen Wright, Dante Exum, two guys that are, top 5 in point per dollar plays, less than 5% ownership on these guys. Like, a lot of guys are going to levitate to the standard, the lineup builds of, Middleton and Bledsoe and Ilyasova. But in tournaments, especially in the deep field tournaments, you got guys like Exum and Wright who are strong value plays. I prefer Exum. I know it's tougher to get him because he's at point guard, but there's so many guys that have really good value projections that are just solo owned. And then you can keep going down. You'll see Kevin Huerter, 8% ownership. You'll see Ricky Rubio, 9% ownership. And then one of my favorites of the night, Dante DiVincenzo, 7% ownership. So there's a ton of guys who are providing really good value for our lineups here that aren't getting ownership tonight. So that's one thing that I've noticed pretty much all day. And then especially when the news kept coming, I think people were levitating to this. So we see a lot of concentrated ownership. We see Middleton at 70%. Middleton at 70%. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is something that, if I had to pick between, the main three, Bledsoe, Ilyasova, and Middleton, he would be 3 for me. Obviously he's the most expensive out of all of them. Bledsoe projects nearly similar to him. And, and you have a guy on the same team at the same position in Dante DiVincenzo, who I've talked about all show that I like a lot. So I think, Middleton, is a guy who I might be a little bit under the field on. Still like him a good amount. Still think he's a good cash game play, but for tournaments, he's someone to at least note. 70% ownership is a lot. So we've seen guys like that. And a lot of times they end up being all right. But, I think there's at least a chance to say, hey, there's some pivots here, especially when you take lineup construction in a different light. And there's a lot of value here that's going overlooked. So Dante Exum, Dante DiVincenzo. We're just going to play all the Dantes tonight. That's what we're going to
do. Works for me. So we're still getting questions like as far as like Denver goes. So I'm going to go over to Court IQ. Again, like it's one of the tools that I probably use the most on RotoGrinders outside of Lineup HQ. And I'm going to take Millsap, Plumlee, and Jamal Murray off the floor. And I'm going to look at the last 2 weeks. It's very recent that all three of these guys have been out. We've seen a lot of adjustments with this team. So here's what's standing out to me. Jokic, 29.9%, 1.44 fantasy points per minute. Michael Porter Jr., again, 1.17 fantasy points per minute. Somebody's asking us in chat, can you play both Porter and Jokic on FanDuel? I think the answer is yes. You play a lot more on FanDuel than I do. But here's the thing that I like to do as well. So Michael Porter Jr. is averaging 1.17 fantasy points per minute over the last 2 weeks. So I'll set his minimum projection to 1 minute, change his actual fantasy points to 1.17 just to kind of get an idea. I'll go back to the RotoGrinders projection of minutes of 25 minutes, and you can see how much that really will bump him up to make him, again, I think they're undervalued. I think Denver in general is undervalued on this slate. So, and I think you could even bump it up a little bit higher with the pace matchup, the defensive matchup of Memphis.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think this is a good spot to talk about. I think the real situation for guys that I wouldn't play together are Grant and Porter. I feel like these guys are going to be the guys that kind of conflict each other. So, if Grant maybe loses a few minutes, I think Porter will get those few minutes. So I think with Plumlee out, it's a little bit different. I think both these guys can see, pretty strong minutes here. Embiid was actually just ruled in. So I think but I think Porter's a guy who's a really strong play on FanDuel. I probably don't get to Grant on FanDuel, even though I do think he's a good play, a good player and in a good spot with minutes wise in the role that he's going to have. But for me, it's Barton and Porter on this Denver side, with Jokic kind of being another good option as well. But now with Embiid in, and then with how much I like Ayton, I think Jokic probably be my either 2 or 3 center, but mainly Ayton will be in my main lineup at center. And I think Barton and Porter kind of get priority for this game.
All right, so let's go to Embiid news. The good thing about this show, like we can kind of just talk about stuff as it's coming out.
Yeah.
Crunch time coming up after us. Obviously, we have Meansy, JSU, and Roth at crunch time at 6:30 Eastern. They'll have a lot more injury news, and they'll be able to break things down a lot better than what we will. But Embiid, let's talk about Embiid really quick. He's available. Obviously, we won't get the starting lineup till closer to lock, but available Embiid, that just means he's playing, right? Like, what does this do for you with Philly now, in this matchup against Golden State? We know just how bad Golden State is defensively and overall. What does this do for you for Philly, where, like, before this news, maybe like Tobias, maybe like Simmons were in play? Does this kind of rule everybody out for you now?
Yeah. So for me, I had a lot of interest in Al Horford, but now with Embiid coming back in, I think Al Horford would be the most likely that I would play out of Simmons, Tobias, and Horford because his price is just the most appealing. Ben Simmons, I essentially think I'll have 0% Ben Simmons here. When considering that Trae Young and Luka are on the slate, along with guys like Kemba and Bledsoe, I already wasn't going to have a ton of Ben Simmons at this price, and I was a little bit worried about it. But now I don't really have to worry about it too much. I think. I feel a lot better about the fade here at that price tag with Embiid coming back. Tobias Harris, kind of same thing. He got a price bump with how well he was playing with Embiid off the floor. 7-4 on both sites. I don't think I get to him at all. I think you could still play Horford. I just don't know if he has the ceiling, the same ceiling that he once had with Embiid off the floor. But as far as Embiid, it's going to come down to if there's a minutes limit and, kind of the minute projection that you feel comfortable giving him. Right now I have him for 28. It's a finger injury, so he could easily not be limited at all. And, if we get a Joel Embiid at 9K on FanDuel, 9.8 on DraftKings, who isn't limited against the Warriors, something that you'd have a lot of interest in, but it's just all going to come down to if they've always been careful with him throughout his entire career. So I think at 28 minutes, he doesn't really pop as an exceptional play, but he definitely has the opportunity to get more. If he gets into the 32, 33 range, he could easily crush this and break the slate, really.
Yeah, like if you're mass multi-entering, you have to have some exposure to Embiid. Unless we get like a minutes restriction where it's kind of low. But like if he plays 28 minutes, like what we're talking about, like if you look, I pulled up his game log here before he got hurt, 32, 33, 36, 32 minutes in the last 4 games. So like obviously when we're looking at it there, he has the upside if he gets those types of minutes, because Golden State, they don't have anybody that's going to match up with Joel Embiid. They don't have anybody. So obviously like Embiid could crush here. We did just get news that Tatum is out. We kind of knew that was going to probably be the case. Javonte Green is out as well. We gave Boston thoughts earlier. It doesn't really change, right? Like the Boston thoughts that we had earlier, pretty much solid, right?
Yeah, like you mentioned, we kind of were considering him as doubtful, really. So him being ruled out, we kind of talked about, how we're going to attack Boston already.
Somebody's like, guarantee my guy Embiid crazy out of shape. Isn't like Embiid always out of shape and he still does his thing? So
hey, all the out of shape players, Luka, Jokic, it's their time to shine right now. So they're loving it. And then once we get to the RG basketball tournament, all the out of shape basketball players are just going to be balling. So it's fine. That's what we want, right?
Listen, I'm telling you guys, I'm good for 2 trips down the floor and then I'm done. But those 2 trips, like 6 points. Really quick, you're more of a FanDuel player. We had a question over there in YouTube chat. Thoughts on Troy Brown Jr. On FanDuel? I think he's interesting on DraftKings price-wise. I like Kyle Anderson more. Is Troy Brown a guy that you like on FanDuel today?
Yeah, definitely. Like outside of Siakam, I don't really see myself spending up over 7K for any of these guys. So obviously with Giannis out, not playing him, not getting to Ingram a whole lot, not getting to Tobias, not getting to Kelly Oubre. So for me, finding guys in that mid-tier range, even value range at small forward is something that I like a lot. And with how many Chris Jamino says, I am a shape. Sorry, I laughed at that, so I had to get that out. But with all the Milwaukee guys going to be playing, going to have a lot of interest in these Bucks. So it makes a lot of sense to have a guy like Troy Brown. Thinks he's a good value player right now. So I think he's a strong play on FanDuel.
All right, we had a mass multi-entry question. Again, I'm not playing 150 lineups tonight. I might have some fun and play like a 20-entry max. But I think that, this question is obviously a question I feel like a lot of people are going to be asking. If you're mass multi-entering tonight, how many roster spots would you lock Milwaukee into? Would you lock it into 2 to 3? Would you lock them into 3? Me personally, I think this is an interesting question. So I'm going to get your thoughts and then I'll give my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I would say 2 to 3 for sure. And I think you could even play 4 of them if you want to play Brook Lopez. But right now in my main lineup, I have 3 of them. So, I think 3 to 4 probably be a good amount. And I don't think you should have any less than 2. I think 2 is probably the minimum for me. So I would say anywhere 2 to 4. That's kind of where I would fall.
Yeah, like I think minimum 2. Like I think if I'm playing 150 teams today, and like I said, I might play like the 20-entry max just to have some fun. I'd probably play at least 2 Milwaukee guys on every single team. The matchup, we talked about the matchup right at the beginning of the show. We showed the usage. We showed the NBA stats of just how this team kind of sets up. So hopefully that answers the question. They also have said, would you group out Bledsoe and Middleton in large field GPPs? I could see both of them getting there. So like, I don't think I would like limit who I play together on Milwaukee. But if I'm looking at it, like for me, Bledsoe, Middleton, Ilyasova, these guys are all, for sure.
Yeah, I think Bledsoe and Middleton can definitely get there together, but I think that's actually a pretty interesting tournament way to, maybe you're playing, the main large field tournament on DraftKings or FanDuel, and a ton of people, 50,000 plus people, whatever the number is. I think that is quickly all your builds are going to be different. I would probably go on a limb and say nearly half the lineups that are built are going to have both Bledsoe and Middleton. So, by doing that, by grouping them out together, even if you can somehow find a way to do it in only a certain amount of lineups, that portion of your build will instantly be different. So I don't hate that idea at all whatsoever, and I do think it makes a lot of sense to say, hey, they could both get there together. But if they're going to get a ceiling game, maybe having them separately, and if one busts, then you're feeling pretty good about it.
All right. We're getting a lot of questions over in YouTube chat. Again, if you are over in YouTube chat, we appreciate you guys. Make sure you subscribe. Let's answer some of these questions. And then we could kind of give maybe our final thoughts. We got about 15 minutes before we get out of here. Theis with Cantor out. My problem with Daniel Theis is his price is kind of caught up to his production. What are you doing with Theis?
Yeah, I just don't love him at this price. We've talked about guys, even on FanDuel specifically. We got Porter, who's only 100 more. I definitely feel he has more upside here. We got Bertans, who's $100 less. So those are two guys that I would prefer over Theis. And then even on FanDuel, where you can play favors on at the power forward spot, which I like a lot at 5.5. So for me, there's too many guys around Theis to where he's priced at to where I'm just playing those guys over him. I do think Theis has a pretty strong floor, so maybe he'd be more of a cash game play. But for me, guys like Favors, Porter, and Bertans all have better ceilings for me for tournament purposes.
DK GPP thoughts on Randle. My issue with Julius Randle today is his price. Like I struggle with Julius Randle's price. Like I think Julius Randle has upside in any matchup. Charlotte, a terrible team against bigs. So I completely understand that. But like just looking at it, like Julius Randle clicking his name at 8,600. I know he has massive upside in any matchup. The matchup against Cleveland or Charlotte is solid. It's just 8,600 seems like a lot for Julius Randle.
Yeah, I agree with you, but you kind of mentioned it. All those good things, the good matchup, all that good stuff. And then you look at his FanDuel price for only 7.4. So if you like Randle, just log into FanDuel and play him over there. That's what I'm doing. I like him a pretty good amount over on FanDuel. I think he's going to be somewhat contrarian as well. So I think he's a pretty strong play.
All right. Yeah. Hey, that's the difference, right? Like if that's the good thing about playing on multiple sites, having hosts that play on multiple sites. I don't play a ton of NBA on FanDuel. So I'm glad that you do. I play a lot more on DraftKings and so on Yahoo, this is a Yahoo question. And I think this question is really interesting because it's kind of going, and I'm giving away all the goods. Don't care. Maybe I'll get an email. Maybe I'll get in trouble. I don't care. If you appreciate it, again, like and subscribe. Help us out. I'm giving you guys a ton today. Like, let's be real. I'm giving you guys a ton. I have both of these guys tagged. I'm showing you everybody that I have tagged right now over there on Yahoo for salary relief. Again, hey, I'm doing the show, so what does it matter, right? Like, I'm talking about these guys anyway. But we had a question, DiVincenzo or Wright on Yahoo, and they are projected almost identical. Projections, projected ownership. Like, is there a guy you're leaning more towards? I feel like on FanDuel, maybe Wright because of ownership, but with these guys so close in projected ownership, like, is this a spot you play your boy?
Yeah, I'm going with Dante DiVincenzo here. He's a guy who, honestly, he's been really good this year with Giannis on the floor. He's been a really good per minute guy, nearly 1 point per minute. He does multiple things. He's a pretty good rebounder for the position that he plays, can fill it up as well. And, he's a guy who's active on the defensive end. So I like him a lot. Obviously, he gets a really good matchup. Should be really fast-paced matchup, maybe that, helps him out in that steal category. The 4.5 price tag on FanDuel, $11 on Yahoo. I love it a lot. And, it's one of those spots where it's a game that everybody wants to get in on. Everyone's going to have, $3 to $4. I think he's going to fall under the radar. So he's a guy that I'm trying to get, definitely over the weight of the field on. And right now he's in my main lineup. So that kind of shows for how much I like DiVincenzo.
Now, this doesn't say which site. If you have questions, throw the site in there just so we can kind of talk about it a little bit better. But it says Kevin Love or Zion and Cash. If this was a FanDuel question, I'd be playing Zion over Love and Cash.
Yeah, I think, the Zion price is pretty nice over on FanDuel. I would definitely prefer him on FanDuel compared to those other sites. So I'm with you there, but I think you can play either one. But I think the way that question's asked, you're going to have money left, I think, either way. So if you're on FanDuel, find a place to upgrade and take Zion. I think I would agree with you there.
Yeah, there's a ton of value because of the Bucks, because of Boston, some of these other teams, Denver. We talked about some of those guys we feel like, or I feel like, are very underpriced or just undervalued on this slate in general. Brown or Barton FanDuel cash? I'm guessing Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, I like them both a pretty good amount. I think Brown has his floor feels a little bit safer with the minutes. He's going to be in the mid 30s of minutes. We've seen Barton kind of fail to hit that mark over the past couple games with Harris coming back and also with Monty Morris kind of picking up a little bit. I think Barton has a little bit higher of a ceiling, considering he's kind of the second option, while Jaylen Brown could be the third at times. But I would prefer Brown for cash, but Barton for GPPs, I think.
Yeah, and, I don't play a lot of cash games. Like, I play almost all the single entry double ups each and every day on DraftKings, just because, again, like, they're just fantastic. But I think either one is fine. Like, I really do. And like, even the next question, like Booker or Beal, they both are phenomenal. Like, they're both plays. Like Nathan Snow, like when you're looking at both of these guys, like if you look at projected, all that stuff, they're all going to be so close. If I'm running 3 Milwaukee players on a team, maybe I take Beal, but a lot of people are going to do that. We really haven't talked about that Phoenix-Dallas game a lot. And like that game, you could be leading tournaments and that game finishing up in the second half. And like, you're like, oh, wow, I'm dropping, because like that game could easily just shock everybody.
Yeah. Booker, $100 less than Beal on FanDuel, and they're pretty much identical in ownership projections right now. So I think you can go either one. And, we've been talking about, for example, the Siakam and Trae Young kind of duo tonight, but it's kind of the same thing with Booker and Luka. That makes a lot of sense as well. So I think Booker's going to be a really good tournament play that maybe people don't look at. And I think you can play Booker and Ayton together in lineups. They kind of do different things. Ayton's kind of a guy who, if it's for a ceiling game, you're looking for 20-20, and then Booker, you're kind of hoping for like a 40-point real point game here. They can both get that done in the same game simultaneously. So I like those guys a lot. Pairing them with Luka makes a lot of sense.
Shout out to Patrick over there in YouTube chat. Been on RotoGrinders for 3 years and said it's great. We appreciate you being here each and every day. We love doing this. This is a ton of fun. So if you guys appreciate it, we enjoy you guys being here, talking some NBA with us. Kyle and I, we could have messaged each other back and forth all day and had fun that way, but we're having a lot more fun with you guys. So we appreciate you guys being over there on YouTube. A couple more questions. Hey, like the questions are rolling in. Like, chat, you have questions? Let's do it. We talked about a lot of the key points. We have crunch time at 6:30 coming up here. But again, like if you have a question, try to keep it more like site dependent and try not to make it like a 3v3. Like crunch time can get way more into that. Let's talk. This one's interesting. Favors or Theis on FanDuel?
I think I would still prefer Favors. I know people are probably a little bit down on him with the return or the emergence of Zion, considering Zion comes back, Favors loses a few minutes here, but he's been at 27 over the last 2 games. Obviously, a really, really good matchup here. 5.5 price tag on Favors is definitely appealing. So I think I would lean Favors pretty easily. I just think he has more of a ceiling here.
It's kind of where I'm at too. I don't think Zion's really going to hurt Favors. I said this on the podcast. I think Okafor and Hayes really lose like whatever minutes they were kind of playing. So yeah, that's just one of those things. Do you have any thoughts on Morant? We really didn't talk about him. People are asking, like, I think his price is fantastic. Like if you're like me and you're like looking at stacking that game, I think it's really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I've been a huge John Morant guy all year, not only, as a player, but even for fantasy purposes. The only issue I have with Morant today is just all the point guards that are at his position, obviously. So we got Luka, we got Trae Young, we have Kemba. Then we get down, you got Bledsoe, you got Exum, Sexton. So there's a lot of point guards for me. So he probably falls outside of that kind of spectrum, but he's going to be super low owned. And you've talked about it all show. He should be in a really good spot. This game should be fairly close. And, obviously Memphis plays at a super fast pace. So maybe it's a good spot for pace in this one as well. So can never hate on a John Morant ownership play at all. I just think he falls outside of, the boundaries of guys for me, considering how many good point guards are on this slate.
This one's really interesting. It says Jokic or Trae Young, DK, GPP. I think I lean Trae Young. I think Jokic is in a phenomenal spot. I said that, but I think Trae Young just has a higher ceiling right now. He's gone for over 70 in 2 of the last 3 games. Like, we talked about his usage. We showed you guys on Court IQ, like the usage breakdown for Trae Young right now. Like, I lean Trae Young because I think his ceiling is just so much higher right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. I prefer Young as well. I think they're both good plays, like you mentioned. I'm with you on that, but I think I lean Trae Young slightly.
All right, we got so many questions rolling in here. Loving you guys over there on YouTube. Appreciate you guys keeping us flowing here with these questions. Favorite lineup HQ build rule for MME on tonight's slate, if you have any. That one's interesting. I think for me, do you want to go first on this one? Because I can kind of show and I can kind of set it up and I can show what I was going to talk about here.
Yeah, sure. I think for me, it just makes a lot of sense. I would probably set, a minimum of $2. I think that's probably the go-to one. And then the thing I've been finding myself doing when I do MME is pairing guys, like pairing studs together with, the other team, the top option of their team. So maybe pairing a guy like Trae Young and Siakam, or pairing a guy like Luka with Ayton or Booker. I think those are the kind of rules that I've been setting personally that I think kind of give you a good upside for tournament lineups. And then obviously when there's a slate like this where a big star's out, where we got a bunch of value options, a bunch of strong options on one team, setting a minimum of 2, maybe a max of 4 or 5, depending on the site or how you feel about those guys. But I would say a minimum of $2, and then the pairings for guys like Luka and Trae Young.
Yeah, so let's look at it really quick. I was going to show the Milwaukee and how to, just in case somebody doesn't know how to kind of so I would rename it. I'd be like Bucks, just to kind of give myself a quick reference point. So if I'm looking at mass multi-entering here, I think I would set it to 4, and I would put even in 150 teams, and maybe another thing that I think people underutilize is maybe running 130 teams with Bucks players on 2 to 4, and then running 20 teams fading Milwaukee maybe. I just don't see fading Milwaukee today. For me, when I'm looking at mass multi-entering, I'm looking at using lineup HQ, I'm looking at build rules, I'm playing 2 to 4 Bucks on every team. I have only 5 selected. I think if you want to add more, that's fine. I have Yahoo selected, so I didn't have pricing up in front of me for other sites. But looking at it, Brook Lopez, DiVincenzo, these guys have projected ownership that you can gain leverage on the field. And then you can go in and set a rule where you have them at depending on how many you want to play of each guy, 75%, 75% for Ilyasova, Bledsoe, Middleton, and then make sure you're getting, some of those lower owned Bucks.
Yeah, definitely. I think I agree with you there. And then, someone asked that question earlier. If you really have, maybe a little bit more risk tolerance than others, and you want to do the build rule where you say Bledsoe and Middleton, maybe one of them, then you'll be getting more value and even more leverage on lineups in these large field tournaments. So I think that's something to at least consider. I feel like maybe that's not the optimal strategy, but maybe it is for maybe it's an idea to think of for large field tournaments.
We had a question in chat that I found kind of interesting that we'll talk about, and then we're probably gonna have to get out of here, so we're gonna have to do this kind of quick. It was, does Bruno Fernando being out change anything in terms of the Atlanta bigs for you? We know Alex Lynn is going to be out here. We take Bruno off the floor too. Do you think maybe a guy like Damian Jones plays 20 minutes tonight instead of 10 to 12?
So for me, I think what they'll do is they'll have either DeAndre Hunter just slide to the 4 and play more. So we already got news that Collins is going to start at center. So throughout the year, we've seen Collins be a guy who's going to be around 30 minutes, 32 minutes in that range. So I think it actually gives the biggest boost to John Collins. I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe hop into the mid-30s, 34, 35 minutes, which is was really interesting for a guy. Obviously, tough matchup. He'll be dealing with Ibaka and Gasol all day, but I do think he should add on a few more minutes. I assume Damian Jones will get, at least a slight bump. I could be wrong about it. Maybe he gets a pretty massive bump, but I think the minutes will primarily go to Hunter and Collins at the 4 and 5. So right now I have Collins projected for 33, and I have Damian Jones for 16. So I do think Jones gets a few extra, but I don't think he quite makes the that 20-minute mark. And overall, I think Collins gets the biggest bump from Fernando and Len being out.
There you go. That's going to wrap it up. We've had a ton of fun, like I said, on YouTube. Appreciate you guys hanging out over there in chat. If you're over there, make sure you subscribe, like the video. Kyle, any final thoughts?
No, I'm just excited for a big Pascal Siakam game. Spicy P's going off tonight.
All right, I'm excited for a big Trae Young game. So that's going to wrap it up here for Grinderslive. Crunch time, 6:30 Eastern. Meansy, JSU, and Kevin Roth. My captain, my man, Kevin Roth. Appreciate you guys watching, and we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place.